Tesla's global market share just collapsed from 20% to barely 13%. Ford's EV division is hemorrhaging billions. Rivian's stock is down 80% from its peak. The reason isn't bad products or Elon's tweets. It's a Chinese SUV most Americans have never heard of that sold over 500,000 units globally in under 3 years, became the #1 electric vehicle in Israel and Sweden, costs $32,000, and delivers everything a Model Y does for literally half the price. While Detroit argued about charging standards and Tesla cut prices in panic, the BYD Atto 3 quietly conquered every market America abandoned, and now it's coming for what's left. The BYD Atto 3, sold as UN Plus in China, launched in February 2022 with zero fanfare outside Asia. No Super Bowl commercials, no celebrity endorsements, no Elon promising it would drive itself. Just a straightforward electric SUV with 300 miles of range, 5-star safety ratings, and pricing that made established players look greedy. Within 19 months, BYD produced the 500,000th unit. Let that sink in. 500,000 vehicles in under 2 years for a model most Western media ignored. Tesla took over 3 years to build 500,000 Model 3s, and that was considered revolutionary pace. The Atto 3 did it faster, quieter, and in more countries than Tesla even sells. The numbers tell a story American automakers desperately don't want told. The Atto 3 measures 4,455 millimeters long, 1,875 millimeters wide, and 1,615 millimeters tall, with a 2,720 millimeter wheelbase. That's slightly smaller than a Volkswagen Tiguan, but roomier inside thanks to EV packaging with no transmission tunnel and flat floor. It's proper family SUV size, the segment Americans actually buy, rather than the massive 3-row behemoths Detroit keeps pushing. The exterior follows BYD's Dragonface 3.0 design language with a smooth closed front, LED headlights, aggressive bumper corners, and full-width tail lamp. It's modern and clean without screaming EV stereotype or trying too hard to look futuristic. This is a vehicle designed to appeal to normal families rather than tech early adopters. Step inside and the Atto 3 immediately undermines American EV value propositions. An 8.8-inch digital instrument cluster and massive 12.8-inch floating touchscreen that rotates between landscape and portrait modes dominate the dashboard. The infotainment runs BYD's latest system with smartphone mirroring, voice control, and over-the-air updates. Materials include soft-touch surfaces in higher trims with two-tone color schemes, ambient lighting, and those guitar string door accents that became BYD's signature design element. The front seats offer heating and cooling in top trims with decent support. That flat floor and 2,720mm wheelbase mean rear passengers get legitimate legroom, and boot space hits 660 liters, more cargo capacity than a Tesla Model Y's 425 liters. That's not a typo. The cheaper Chinese SUV has 50% more trunk space. The powertrain uses a single front-mounted motor producing 150 kilowatts, roughly 200 horsepower and 310 newton-meters of torque. That's adequate for confident acceleration and highway merging without being excessive. 2 BYD Blade LFP battery options are available. The 49.92 kilowatt-hour pack delivers 430 kilometers CLTC range. The 60.48 kilowatt-hour pack pushes that to 510 kilometers CLTC, which translates to approximately 420 kilometers or 260 miles in real-world WLTP testing. That's legitimate usable range for daily driving and weekend trips. Sure, a Tesla Model Y long range goes further, but most buyers don't need 330 miles. They need enough range to commute during the week and make occasional road trips. The Atto 3 delivers that for dramatically less money. The Blade battery technology proves central to BYD's competitive advantage. This is BYD's proprietary lithium iron phosphate cell-to-pack design, with improved thermal management and legendary safety. LFP chemistry sacrifices some energy density compared to nickel-based batteries but gains massive advantages in thermal stability, cycle life, and cost. BYD markets the puncture resistance aggressively, showing videos of nail penetration tests where the battery doesn't catch fire. That's not just marketing. LFP batteries are inherently safer than nickel chemistries. They also last longer with over 3,000 charge cycles before degradation, meaning the battery will likely outlast the rest of the vehicle. And critically, it uses no cobalt or nickel, eliminating expensive and ethically questionable supply chains. American EV makers are desperately trying to switch to BYD perfected it years ago and scaled to millions of units. Charging supports DC fast charging, taking the battery from 30 to 80% in 25 minutes on compatible chargers, competitive for this battery size. The 2024 model year refresh brought minor updates including a larger 15.6-inch screen in some markets, replacing Build Your Dreams badges with the new BYD logo, Black Sea pillar decoration, and new wheel designs. The 2025 model added more wheel designs and gray interior color options. These aren't revolutionary changes. They're the kind of running improvements that show a manufacturer listening to feedback and continuously refining the product. Here's where the Atto 3 becomes genuinely threatening to American automakers. In 2022, BYD earned a 5-star Euro NCAP safety rating under Europe's notoriously tough crash testing standards. That's the same rating as Mercedes, BMW, and Volvo. This isn't some penalty box with questionable safety. It's a properly engineered vehicle that meets or exceeds Western safety standards. 7 airbags, electronic stability control, AEB with pedestrian and cyclist detection, lane keeping assist, adaptive cruise control, blind spot monitoring, and 360-degree camera system come standard or available depending on market. The ADAS hardware and software isn't quite Tesla Autopilot level, but it's adequate for highway driving assistance and parking. Most buyers don't need or want full self-driving promises that never materialize. They want cruise control that maintains distance from the car ahead and lane-to-lane lane keeping that helps on long highway drives. The Atto 3 delivers that. Now let's talk about the elephant in every showroom: price. The 2025 Atto 3 Honor Edition launched in China with a starting price of 115,800 yuan, roughly $16,000. The extended range version with the bigger battery sits at 145,800 yuan, around $20,000. $20,000 for a fully loaded electric SUV with 300 miles of range, modern technology, and 5-star safety. For context, the cheapest Tesla Model Y costs approximately $45,000 in the United States. That's 125% more expensive. The Ford Mustang Mach-E starts around $40,000. The Chevy Blazer EV begins near $45,000. American EVs cost double what the Atto 3 does while offering similar or worse specifications. But those are China prices with government subsidies. Defenders argue, fair point. Let's look at export markets where the Atto 3 competes directly with American EVs without home market advantages. In Australia, the 2025 Atto 3 starts at 48,011 Australian dollars, approximately 31,000 US dollars. The Tesla Model Y starts at 61,800 Australian dollars, roughly 40,000 US dollars. That's still 30% cheaper. In the UK, the Atto 3 starts around 36,000 pounds, approximately $46,000. The Model Y begins at 45,000 pounds, about $58,000. In every single market where both vehicles are sold, the Atto 3 undercuts Tesla by 25 to 40% while delivering 80 to 90% of the capability. That value proposition is impossible for most buyers to ignore. The conquest is already happening. In July 2023, the Atto 3 became the best-selling electric vehicle in Sweden, beating the Tesla Model Y and Volkswagen ID.4. Sweden, a wealthy European market with high EV adoption and strong preference for premium brands, chose the Chinese SUV over Tesla and VW. In Israel, the Atto 3 was introduced in September 2022. By the end of that year, it was the third best-selling EV. By first quarter 2023, it became the best-selling EV in Israel. By the end of 2023, it was the best-selling vehicle period in Israel, all powertrains included. A Chinese electric SUV outsold every Toyota, every Hyundai, every Mazda, in a market known for preferring Japanese reliability. Singapore provides another data point. The Atto 3 launched in July 2022. It became the best-selling car for the first quarter of 2024, again beating everything including conventional petrol vehicles. In Thailand, BYD received 10,000 orders in the first month after introduction. The Atto 3 is sold across Southeast Asia, including Malaysia, Philippines, Indonesia, and Brunei, with strong sales in all markets. It's available in India, where it's locally assembled near Chennai. It launched in Nepal, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka throughout 2024 and 2025. It entered South Africa in June 2023 as part of BYD's African expansion. It's sold across Latin America, including Brazil, Ecuador, and Chile, and it's established in multiple European markets, including Germany, UK, Norway, and Netherlands. The global footprint is staggering. BYD sells the Atto 3 in over 60 countries. Tesla sells cars in maybe 30 to 40 markets, depending on how you count. Ford doesn't export Mustang Mach-E to most of these markets. Chevy doesn't sell Blazer EV internationally. Rivian is purely domestic. American automakers surrendered the global EV market before the battle even started, assuming they'd have time to catch up later. BYD didn't wait. They built a genuinely good product, priced it aggressively, and established dealer networks across Asia, Latin America, Middle East, Africa, and Europe, while American companies were still arguing about charging connector standards. By September 2023, BYD produced the 500,000th Atto 3 at their Hefei plant. 22% of production was exported. Over 100 exported 10,000 units to foreign markets in under 2 years. In 2024, BYD delivered over 400,000 yuan-plus units globally. That single model outsold the entire Rivian company, which managed around 50,000 deliveries. It outsold Ford's Mustang Mach-E, which delivered approximately 40,000 units in the US. One Chinese SUV that most Americans have never heard of crushed multiple American EV programs in global sales, and it did so while being profitable. BYD reported over $100 billion in revenue for 2024 with healthy margins. Rivian loses money on every vehicle. Ford's EV division hemorrhages billions. Chevy's EV program is barely break-even. BYD scales profitable EVs, while American companies subsidize their electric vehicles with truck profits. The strategic brilliance becomes clear when you look at BYD's broader position. The company isn't just an automaker. They're vertically integrated, manufacturing their own batteries, motors, electronics, and even semiconductors in-house. That eliminates supply chain bottlenecks and reduces costs dramatically. When battery prices spiked, Tesla and Ford faced margin pressure. BYD made their own batteries cheaper than anyone could buy them wholesale. When chip shortages paralyzed the auto industry, BYD had their own semiconductor foundries. This is the advantage American companies surrendered by financializing and outsourcing manufacturing over 40 years. BYD controls their entire supply chain. American automakers control only final assembly, leaving them vulnerable to any disruption. The Atto 3 also benefits from BYD's manufacturing scale. The company produced over 4 million vehicles in 2024, more than any pure EV maker by a massive margin. That volume drives costs down through economies of scale and learning curves that smaller producers can't match. Every component gets cheaper as volumes rise. Every manufacturing process becomes more efficient. BYD's cost per vehicle is probably 30 to 40% below Tesla's despite similar feature content, purely from scale advantages and vertical integration. That cost advantage translates directly into pricing power. BYD can undercut competitors by thousands while maintaining healthy margins, or they can match competitor pricing and take huge margins. Either way, they win. The American EV industry's response has been denial and protectionism. Rather than building better products or cutting costs to compete, US automakers lobbied for 100% tariffs on Chinese EVs. President Biden imposed those tariffs in September 2024, effectively banning Chinese EVs from the US market. It's a desperate defensive move that buys time but solves nothing. BYD simply focused on the 95% of global auto market outside the US. They're building factories in Thailand, Indonesia, Hungary, Brazil, and Mexico to bypass tariffs in other regions. They're establishing brand presence and building customer loyalty, while American companies try to hold their domestic market with walls rather than better products. The brutal truth is this: the Atto 3 proves Chinese automakers have reached product parity with the West while maintaining massive cost advantages. This isn't a cheap knockoff. It's a well-engineered vehicle that meets European safety standards, delivers competitive range and features, and costs half what American EVs do. That combination is devastating for American automakers who spent billions developing EV platforms that are now outdated and overpriced compared to Chinese alternatives. Ford lost over $5 billion on EVs in 2024. GM's EV division is barely break-even despite massive Bolt sales. Rivian burns cash every quarter. Tesla's margins collapsed from 29% to under 15% as they cut prices trying to maintain volume against Chinese competition in global markets. The Atto 3 is just one model. BYD sells over a dozen EVs globally. Geely, Chery, GWM, and others are launching competitive EVs in multiple segments. Chinese automakers will produce over 10 million EVs in 2025, more than the rest of the world combined. They're not coming for the American EV industry. They've already won everywhere America isn't protected by tariffs, and those tariffs won't last forever. Eventually, Chinese brands will establish local production in North America through Mexico or direct US investment, bypassing trade barriers the same way Japanese and Korean brands did decades ago. When BYD opens a factory in Mexico assembling Atto 3s for the North American market, what will Ford do? Lobby for tariffs on Mexico, blowing up USMCA? Build a competitive EV for $30,000? They can't do the latter. Their cost structure won't allow it. The Atto 3 succeeded by doing what American companies forgot: building a solid product people actually want at a price they can afford, then selling it everywhere rather than just wealthy markets. It's not revolutionary. It's execution and discipline, boring virtues that happen to win industries. While American companies made bold promises about autonomous driving and radical manufacturing processes, BYD quietly designed a practical electric SUV, refined it through multiple iterations, scaled production to millions of units, and distributed it globally. The Atto 3 is the Chinese EV that destroyed America's electric car dreams, and most Americans will never even see one because their government banned it rather than compete with it. That tells you everything you need to know about who's winning.